By 1950, the agitation for independence had grown in Kenya, led by the demobilized veterans of the war in Asia. These veterans had formed an informal group called Anake A40 in reference to the year in which they had been recruited into the British Army to fight the Japanese. Once in Asia, they witnessed the repeated defeats of the British at the hands of the Japanese, and the myth of European invincibility was broken. When upon their demobilization in Kenya, the British typically reneged on the promise to pay them with land grants, these veterans decided to fight for independence. In the hubris of victory over the Axis, the British government was feeling very confident in the future prospects of the British Empire. In Kenya, this meant that the casual racism, apartheid, the rape of native women intensified. This continued humiliation, forced labor of Africans under slave-like conditions, and the raising of prices in order to pay the British war debt finally created deep rumblings of dissatisfaction. As the Anake A40, later on called Mau Mau, started agitating at the local level, the collaborators, the traitors, the Judases, the African elite, which closely worked with and for the colonial system, started spying and reporting on the growing resistance movement. It became clear to the patriots that freedom would never come until the collaborators had been eliminated. These traitors and opposers to African aspirations had the same characteristics. A. They were part of the colonial administration of the British occupation government, and B. They were leaders of European denomination churches. They both worked for and imitated and worshipped Europeans as deity. They had been recruited as children by missionaries when the European invasion began. And what the British did in Kenya, they also selected all the social outcasts once they invaded the country, and they made these outcasts into chiefs just to demoralize the local population. So people who had been kicked out of villages because of rape, theft, and all sorts of misbehaviors, these are the people who became the new chiefs in the colonial administration. And the British specifically groomed them and their children to become the new elite. And any other person that had been rejected by the local ethnic groups was also recruited to become an askari in the British colonial police. In 1952, a senior chief in the British occupation government called Warohio was assassinated for his role in selling out his people. A few days later, the British colonial government in Kenya declared a state of emergency, and open war broke out. During this war on the Mau Mau, the British used concentration camps, torture, and rape as a weapon, egged on and encouraged by the collaborators, who identified and picked out the people to be victimized, while they cheered on. The hatred that the African elite in Kenya for fellow Africans has been persistent to this day. It is this same elite, this same group of collaborators that would rule Kenya on behalf and in place of the British, doing everything in their power to protect the British and American interests while scuttling as African aspirations. Many wonder why this elite completely sold out Kenya to foreign interests. What you need to know is that many of them had benefited personally from colonialism, and all were members of European Christianity and had been heavily brainwashed to think that God, the angels, and all the saints were Europeans. As the British started to decolonize Kenya, they stepped up efforts to recruit African askaris, preachers, colonial-era chiefs, and their children into the colonial system. And they made it very clear that the former forest fighters of the Mau Mau were not welcome at all at any level of government, and the African sellouts were all too happy to oblige. British recruitment of the collaborator class included mandatory membership into the Freemasons and the military intelligence services of foreign countries, so that when independence was granted in 1963, most of the Kenyan elite were Freemasons working for the CIA and British intelligence and on behalf of Mzungu-owned business interests in Kenya. This Masonic elite, now in charge of Kenya, quickly integrated itself into British society, with many of them marrying European women, buying houses in England, and producing a diluted bloodline of children who had little or no loyalty to the new Kenyan state. They were more comfortable in London than in Nairobi, and at home they repudiated and rejected to teach their diluted children any African language or customs. Within the country, European customs, holidays, and everything else became the law. Their children went to strictly European schools and were taught a European curriculum, and they had both European names, and they picked up all European habits. So that in Kenya, we ended up having a mixed race elite that has been in charge of the country from then until today. What is characteristic of this elite is that they do not feel that they're African. They really feel in themselves that they are British first and Kenyan second, which is why any policy enacted in London is immediately implemented in Kenya with zero resistance. In conclusion, we can see that the conflict between the African sellout bourgeoisie class and the patriots has not ended. There are still sections of the peasant population that long for true freedom. However, the home guards, the sellouts, and the religious leaders remain in charge of Kenya, always willing to work hand in hand with Mzungu interests to defeat the aspirations of the people of Kenya, to ruin our people, our wealth, our culture, our morality, our independence, and eventually our lives. In the past, they were all too eager to carry a gun and kill their fellow African in the interest of the colonizer. Today, they show the same eagerness to carry a syringe with which to target and finish our children and our population. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Kenya's time has come. Our time has come. Your time has come. A time to succeed and not fail. A time to grow wealth and not poverty. A time to go up and not down. It's time for you to stop walking and drive your car. Stop renting and buy yourself a house. It's your time to get blessed. Join the CCV movement, and together let us kick poverty and unemployment out of Kenya. Become a member today. Donate what you can. And remember that the CCV is the only political organization in Kenya that is squarely built upon Christian values, unlike the rest. We'll see you next time. Thank you.